So good to have you all popping on. So fun. It's so fun for me. I get to see all the names here. Awesome. Welcome, welcome. I always love sharing all these webinars. I love coming up with titles. I love coming up with content. I love constructing it all for everybody. It's so much fun. So, what I'd like to do is, first of all, so welcome. And as we're learning today, I want you to get really curious with what I'm sharing and how it influences you. So the way we're going to do today's webinar is I'm going to teach the three remedies to stop self-sabotage with our weight loss goals. I'm going to be teaching all of that. And at the end, I can take any questions that you have. So one of the things that I'm going to encourage you to do is to turn off your notifications on your phone and just let yourself enjoy and participate in this hour that you're like devoting to. I do recommend you have some paper and a pen. This will be recorded and you will be able to get the replay. But so one of the suggestions as well is to let yourself just be in a space of like openness. And because there's a lot of emotion that comes along with weight loss, and there's a lot of judgment that we have given ourselves. So just even giving yourself permission just to be open to like the things that I'm sharing today. Okay, so here we have the first part. Now, one of the problems that we have with weight loss and with accomplishing goals is that we are wired differently, like that we want to be. So when I say that, so we were wired to live in a world where we didn't have like houses and security systems and grocery stores. So even when I think about the pioneers, they just went to this like open land, and they were, they were a threat. They could have been killed, all of that. And so our wiring at the core was really, really helpful for us because it kept us alive, right? We had the survival. And so there is the motivational triad of how we're wired. And I've actually did a little bit more research into, just to give you a little bit more understanding of what the motivational triad really is all about. So the first part of our motivational triad for being a human is to seek pleasure, which means it's saying to us, do whatever feels good. So eat whatever you want, have like do all the things that seek pleasure, because that's what helped us survive. So before, when we would eat, we would just eat everything that we could because we didn't know when we were going to have our next meal. There was a lot of food insecurity. So doing whatever feels good is part of our wiring. The next part is conserving energy. So translates to, we want to exert the least amount of effort into something. So when you think about that, so the first thing that came to my mind was like teenagers, right? And I used to be a school teacher, and I had like the classic underachiever, because they were like, I want to do the least amount of effort but still pass. And so I'm like, you're spending so much energy into figuring out what that least amount of effort is. But that's just kind of how we're wired. So exert the least amount of effort. And then the third part of the motivational triad is to avoid pain. And the reason that we have that is because we are wired to think that pain says we are making a mistake. And so there's, expressions like no pain, no gain. There's a lot of misunderstanding about like good pain, bad pain, all of that. And so I really want you to think, oh, pardon me. So these are how we're wired. So when you think about this, it kind of goes against how we're living now. Because and really, when you think about it, here are some. So what are some of your self-sabotaging patterns in weight loss? So if you were to tell me, so put it in the chat, what are some of the thoughts that you've had about how to lose weight, how to keep the weight off? Because some of you have been at your ideal weight and then you gained it back. And so it seems so strange that you did all this work to get to that ideal weight, and then you just put all that weight back on. So why do you think that happened? Okay, so put some of your thoughts in the chat. I would love to see them. All right. So as you're thinking about those, I have 3 thoughts that come up to that I think a lot of people fall into when they think about losing weight and keeping it off. So one is, when I'm at my goal weight, then I'll be happy. Oh, let's see here. What did Maury have to say? Oh, you stopped paying attention to what you were eating. Yeah. Okay. So another one, so yeah. So that's how you sabotaged your weight loss goals, is because you weren't paying attention to what you're eating. You started eating the way I was before you lost the weight, right? You thought, okay, I'm going to get to that weight and then I can just start eating again, normal, because I'll just be able to be at a steady weight. I used to think that too. Weight is down, maybe I can cheat a little. That's right. So that's kind of going along with what Nancy was saying. It's like, well, if I just get to that, then I'll just be a stable. I used to think that all the time. I'm like, oh, I'll just like sacrifice and white knuckle it till I get to my ideal weight. And then I'll be so happy that it'll just be normal now. And I'll just like kind of get down to like back to like a, ground zero. I used to think that a lot. All right. Those are some great, great thoughts. So when I'm at my goal weight, then I'll be happy. I want to be happy. If there is a negative in my life, I must be doing something wrong. That's really interesting. So when you think about looking at people's Facebook posts or Instagram or Pinterest, we see this very like skewed, curated life that people put together. You see these moms with like all these kids, their hair's all done, their clothes all match, like they look incredible, like, and it seems like it's like effortless and it's like every day. Meanwhile, I have my 5 kids and I'm just happy that they have socks. Like I haven't matched socks in, however long. And so then you kind of beat yourself up and all of that just kind of happens. So you're like, in my life, I want to be happy. So they don't, so anyways, that is one of the thoughts. So we're going to dive into that one. And then a third thought that I think a lot of us will have is, I don't want to be deprived, because food is comfort and pleasure. And so they put so much pressure on the food, like bringing them all the joy. And we're going to talk about that too. Okay. So these are 3 main parts that really do stop us. They really do sabotage our weight loss. So I'm going to teach you 3 concepts. They're going to help you understand why this is a problem. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to rip this off. And where's my tape? I'm going to post that. So because I'm going to explain a little bit more on here what to do. Now, if you have other comments, please write them down. If you have other like sabotaging thoughts, write them down, because I'm going to be helping you see what's going on for you. Okay. So I'm just going to keep this. Woo! Oh gosh. Just a little curtain falling. No big deal. All right. Well, I just won't touch that again. Okay. So the very first one. Now, so the first thought was, when I'm my goal weight, then I'll be happy. Okay. How is that a problem? So the problem is, we actually can't hate ourselves thin. We just can't do it. And we can't love others when we hate ourselves. Because if we're so busy thinking that the only way to lose weight is to be like the mean, I call it the mean mom complex, like being really mean to ourselves and saying, hey, listen, you better behave. You gotta do things different, like smarten up. Like, what's wrong with you? Right. So a lot of us do that to ourselves to try to lose the weight because we think, oh, if we're strict enough, if we deprive ourselves, because we're being really mean. So the problem is your body isn't hateable. You're just hating your body. So your body hasn't done anything wrong. It's literally just um, it's just coping with when we put too much fuel into our body, then our fuel has to be stored somewhere, and that's why we have the extra pounds. That's all that's happening. The body is doing what it's supposed to do. So when we are hating on our body and being so mean to our body, then we're not having the results that we really want. So we actually need to, it is a requirement for us to start liking our body no matter what the body looks like. So in the work that I do, we have this tool called the model. So let's say you're 220 pounds and this is you. You're not happy with that weight. And so what is your main thought about yourself? Probably something like, I'm really fat. Okay? You could say that. And your feeling would be something like discouraged, mad at yourself, unhappy. Okay? So then your actions are, what kinds of things are you going to do when you're feeling discouraged about the fact, like, I'm really fat, or I'm really dumb, or like, what's wrong with me, I'm broken? Right? You eat. You turn to food for comfort. What else do? You eat more. Yeah. So you spend a lot of time doing things with false pleasure. So you eat, you probably go shopping, you do snacking. Yeah, like you're doing all of those things. And the result is you either stay fat, or as we see, we keep doing this eat false pleasure thing, or gain more weight. Okay? So this is not working for us. When we're hating on our body and we're being really mean to our body, we're just having all these negative emotions, and it's just making the cycle go worse and worse. Now, what I'm saying to you is we need to start loving our body. Now, the problem is we can't go from like, I'm disgusting, I'm terrible, I'm a loser, like, to, yay, everything's wonderful and I'm great. So the circumstance is still going to be 220 pounds, okay? But the thought what could be a different thought about that weight? So one of the things that as you're thinking about that, and put it in the chat, I have this idea of like getting to neutral. So how could we be neutral? Because this is super negative. And here we want to be positive. Okay. So how do we get to neutral? So what about some of the thoughts like, oh, this is just my body, and I've got like this extra fat around here. I guess this is just what happens when you eat chips all the time. That's interesting. Or, oh, look at my arms. My arms have some extra flab. I guess that's just what happens when I don't build muscle. And I'm a woman, and we have estrogen, progesterone changes, and we're going to deep dive into that in February. By the way, I've got some excellent books on how to learn about like deeper dive into like your estrogen and progesterone, how it decreases and increases with with age. But you can be like, oh, this is just what the woman's body is meant to do. Men build muscle, women build because we need to make babies, right? So you just kind of look at yourself and you just start like, just kind of think like, oh, this is just what happens, like wrinkles, like this is just the part of the human experience. So all of these kinds of thoughts that I'm sharing with you, they are contributing to just being like able to look at your body in a much more neutral way. So the feeling could be neutral, and the thought could be something like, "This is just what a body looks like after eating all of this food for this many years." Okay. Right. So you can see that, and you can even just get so. Well, your actions are you look at body without disgust, right? You're just like, huh. And so you're just going to be more curious. You're going to be a lot more, so you're going to accepting. Oh, sorry, here's another one. You're not going to be not judging so much. Right? How different is that? Have you ladies even ever thought of that? That you could just look at your body and be like, this is just what happens. This is just gravity. This is just like today I weighed myself, and it was interesting because I weighed today what I weighed like a week and a half ago. And then I had this like surge, and then so now I'm back to like, and I knew it would happen. So it's super interesting. Anyways, I looked down at my stomach, and I've had 5 very big babies. And so I have this like, it's just kind of like wrinkly skin. I actually didn't really have stretch marks. I hardly have any, which is really surprising. But it's just kind of like wrinkly. And I was just like, oh, I'm so glad I had you 5 babies. That was wonderful. Right. But it's like my skin is just kind of like I'm not a bikini wearer, but I don't think I would ever have like a flat stomach, just because once you blow a balloon up enough times, not going to go back, right? So I just kind of looked at my skin, my stomach, and I was like, oh yeah, this is just what that looks like. It's not a problem, right? Okay, so then what is the result of the thought, this is just what the body looks like? Oops, neutral. The result is you accept the way your body looks. Interesting. There's like an acceptance there. Okay, so now we're going to go. So this is this is the progression I want to take you all through. And when you work with me, so there's women here on the call, they're my one-on-one clients. There's women here that are in my group, and this is what I do with my clients. I say, okay, right now we're feeling really discouraged. We are feeling terrible, but you have a lot of hate, and you can't hate yourself thin. It just won't work. And so now we want to get to neutral, where we just accept. And with acceptance, what's the next step? So here we are, we're still at 220 pounds. That is just the circumstance. It's totally neutral. And then we get to decide what we want to think about it. So how do you want to feel? And I'm going to ask you, ladies, to put this in the chat. So when you think about what I'm explaining to you here, and I'm saying like, you can't hate yourself thin. You just can't. And you can't love others when you hate yourself. And your body isn't hateable. You are hating your body. And it is a requirement to like yourself no matter what your body looks like. And I say to my clients all the time, no more punching yourself in the face. You're not allowed to punch yourself in the face anymore. So punching yourself in the face is saying like, I'm so ugly, I'm such a loser, I'm broken. How is that helping you? Do you know how many of my one-on-one clients and even the ladies in the group I'm learning more about where they have gotten, like I literally just coached a woman right before this call, and she got, for 7 years, she was at 100, between 140, 145 pounds. And she never really even enjoyed it. And at one point, she did have a size, she could wear a size 4, but she just never, even when she was at this ideal weight, and she got up to 220. But even when she had that weight loss for that 7 years, she never really enjoyed herself. She never really felt, she didn't do a lot of celebrating. Even when she put the size 4 on, and she got down to like the 133, she didn't really even like celebrate it. And how is that even possible? Because of the thoughts that she was thinking. Because she never really learned to love like herself now. Like if I put on weight, let's say something happened and I put on like 15 pounds. Guess what? It wouldn't affect the way that I think about myself, because I have decided now that I'm going to like myself no matter what. I have a client who she might have to go on prednisone, and that really increases her weight and her appetite. She's going to have to eat more, and she's kind of worried about it. I'm like, does it even matter? Like, really? You have the tools now. I mean, this client, she's lost 30 pounds in 3 months. She's like, yeah, you're right. It's really interesting. Okay, so let's go back over here. So the circumstance is still the same. And that what is the thought? Did you know that you could actually think positively about yourself at 220 pounds? So first of all, that might just like blow some of our minds. Because what are all the thoughts we have about being overweight? I have so many brilliant clients. They're brilliant. They're talented. They're so successful in so many areas. But guess what they keep doing? They keep beating themselves up in the face, like punching themselves in the face, because they're like, but I'm not that good because I have all this extra weight. What does that even mean? Like, yeah, you have 50 extra pounds. That means you're a bad human? No. It's just that you haven't figured some things out yet when it comes to weight loss. That's all. You're not more, so I should have said this at the very beginning. Your value is already set. You cannot make yourself worth anything more. Like the day you were born and put on this earth, your value was set. And now we just get to have fun. And we just get to decide like what kind of life we want to live. That's really, really important for all of us to remember. Because whether you weigh 220 pounds or whether you weigh 350 pounds or you weigh 120 pounds, your value doesn't change. Like I've lost 50 pounds without exercise and counting calories. I'm not more valuable because I'm thinner. And I'm not more valuable because I've kept it off for 2 years. Not at all. I was talking to a fellow coach and she hasn't made as much money. And, I said, our businesses are the same value. We help people. It's like the person down the road who has a fancier house isn't more valuable than someone who has lives in an apartment. Okay. Like really think about it. And like, please in the chat, like write all your comments about what I'm just saying. Because a lot of the things that I'm saying right now are like debunking a lot of the thoughts that we have. Now, by the way, a belief is just a thought that we've had a lot of times. So if we just keep thinking like people who have extra weight are lazy, people who have extra weight aren't smart, people who have extra weight are whatever that is. If we've just thought that over and over, then that just automatically becomes a belief. And then we don't even question that. And I want to like re-emphasize this. I have so many clients who are brilliant, who are talented, who are so skilled, who have incredible things to offer, but they don't allow themselves to value themselves because they weigh more than somebody else. And that is sad, because then they don't even get to enjoy all of their talents and skills, and they spend so much time hiding because they don't realize their incredible value that they have. So, what is a thought about 220 pounds that could actually be positive? So as I'm saying that, so I'm wanting you to contribute in the chat box. But as I'm saying this is really kind of going against a lot of our beliefs, a lot of the marketing, a lot of the underlying messages that we've been getting in our lives. And now social media. I was watching Oprah Winfrey interview Brene Brown yesterday, because chapter 8 in my group program is about perfectionism, procrastination, and people pleasing. I call it the triple P. And it was interesting because, oh, darn it, I lost my thought. I was watching Oprah and Brene Brown. Oh, maybe if I look at my perfectionism, shame. Nope. I lost my thought. Nope. It's gone. Okay. It'll come back to me. Oh, but yeah, this is a side note. But one of the things that she talks about is the most important relationship we ever have is with ourselves. And so this is the work that I get to do with my clients and my group, is I actually get to teach them skills and tools to be more comfortable with ourselves and enhance our relationship with ourselves. So cool. Okay. So being 220 pounds, a thought could be, this is just the accumulation of my, this is what just a body looks like. The thought is, my weight doesn't define me. That's one of them. Or doesn't define my worth. Because really, when you think about it, so when you look at your life right now, you look at what the number on your scale, you look at how much money is in your bank, you look about like what your house looks like, your financial situation, your relationships, like look at all your relationships you have with people, with your family, with neighbors, with all of that. What your life looks like right now, like that snapshot of it, I guess that's what they used to do, right? That is a reflection of your thoughts. That is telling us, like, all the actions that you've taken, they are a reflection currently of what your life looks like. And so it's really interesting to think of that way, because like you created the results of your life. So you created how much money is in your bank. You created the kind of relationships you have with people. You created your home environment. You created your weight. But one of the issues that a lot of us have is that we feel like those things are happening to us and we don't have a choice. But that's not true. We always are doing it. But if we're creating our results, but if we've been listening to this motivational triad, seeking pleasure, do whatever feels good. If we're conserving energy, exerting the least amount of effort is that's what we should do. And avoiding pain, so pain says we're making a mistake, so we don't do anything that causes us pain, then that's what's driving your life. And that is what's getting you the results that you have right now. So when we can learn that this is how we're wired, because we are literally having to rewire how we think. And the solution for all of this is actually to learn how to feel feelings. So Brooke Castillo, she says, we don't have a weight loss problem. We have a feeling problem. So when we're not willing to feel any of these negative emotions, then we go straight into this. That's what we're doing. Okay? So if we can feel, my weight doesn't define me. If we can feel love, if we can feel compassion, if we can feel empowerment. I like this, empowerment. It's like my weight doesn't define me. Because guess what's going to happen when you realize your weight doesn't define you? What kinds of actions are you going to take? Are you going to, what are you going to do? You're going to start living a life. You're going to live the life you want. You want to go for a walk? You go for a walk. You want to go read some books? You can just start living your life and you don't have to beat yourself up all the time and say, what's wrong with you? Why are you so slothful? Why are you so lazy? Why aren't you smart enough? Why didn't you figure this out? How much time, if you were to break down how much time every hour that you are saying, what's wrong with you? You're broken. Why can't you figure this out? You're so lazy. But what are people going to think about you? People are going to judge you. Can you imagine what you would do if you didn't have all those negative, we call it the tape, right? These negative tapes, like the cassette, the DVD, whatever, like constantly in your head, how much more free you would be? It's so much more fun. You're not punching yourself in the face all the time by saying, like being the mean mom, like, what's wrong with you? Okay. So what's the result? You no longer are focusing on your weight to define you. You get to be you. It's like you get to break free. I'm like, no, you just get to be this human. And it's so interesting for me because now when I look at people, like I'm going places, I'm doing things, I have so much more understanding and compassion and awareness of what we feel like when we feel defined by our weight. And so there's so many times where I just look at these women that, are carrying this extra 50 or 60 pounds. And I literally just send love to them. I'm like, I love you. I see you for who you are. It's like, it can be the same thing with age. Like some people look at people who are older and look at them as like, oh, that's an old lady. I don't really look at people with their age. Because I have so much more awareness. And so I think, no, we're just like, you just have less wrinkles. I have more wrinkles, like whatever it is. Like we're all just humans having this experience. Like I don't let outside circumstances determine the way I look at people. Okay. So I really want you to think about this progression of your relationship with yourself. Now, I'm going to tell you something. When you can stay in this space, it's just like an automatic response just to take care of yourself more and to look for other things to bring you pleasure rather than the food. Okay. It's a really important part of this progression, okay? So when I'm at my goal weight, then I'll be happy. You need to learn to be happy. And did you notice this? The circumstance did not change. You continue to be 220 pounds. So like I said, you can't hate yourself thin. My whole program is called Love Yourself Thin because that is how I lost the weight and that is how I keep it off. Because I am always willing to feel any emotion And in fact, I love that vulnerability is the most accurate measure of courage. Vulnerability is the birthplace for change. So the more willing you are to feel any emotion, which is vulnerability, right? Sadness, frustration, discouragement, judgment, all of that, the more willing you are, oh, thank you. Yeah, happier. The more willing you are to feel those negative emotions, bring it. Like, truly, that is why I've lost more weight than I even thought I could, because it was just a natural progression for me just to start loving myself. And when I loved myself and I didn't have to have all those false pleasures all the time, then it's like, oh, you get on the scale and you're like, oh, it keeps going down. Now, I'm not telling you it's always going to be easy, because I'm constantly having to manage my mind. Like, yeah, like my scale went up, and sometimes I'll overeat. I don't eat bad things. Like, I'm really good at not eating like off protocol. Sometimes I eat a little bit more than I should, because like Brene Brown says, like, emotions are like sharp pricks. And like, we don't want to feel like those emotions. And so one of the ways that we can avoid that is by filling our bodies up with more food. So when we are filled with more food, we don't have to feel as much. We literally fill ourselves so we don't have to feel as much. That's one of the strategies. That's why people overeat. They just eat more of that they should. And that is actually a coping strategy. Okay. When I was single and I didn't love that I was single and I wanted to be married, I ate more than I needed every night, because there was like the sadness about having, I mean, I liked my roommates and everything, but I was like, come on already. Like, let's get this show on the road. I want to get married. I want to have kids. I don't want to be eating with women. I want to be eating with a family. I want to have a husband. I want to have kids. Like, let's get going. So I overate, and I was overweight in my 20s. And so then it was like this, it's like, well, I can't get married, or I don't feel as confident with myself because I'm overeating, so then I'm overweight, and then I don't feel as attractive, right? Like this whole negative cycle. That's what happened to me. But I had to be willing to feel those negative emotions and be okay with it. All right. I really need to spend some time on that, because it's like such an important part of how this is going to last for you. This is how. So if you have tried to lose weight and you've gone back and forth, congratulations. Like, keep going. But I'm telling you, this is the way. When we understand about our emotions, like we understand how we're wired, and then we learn how to process any emotion, now we're going to be able to overcome this basic wiring, and we can live from our higher brain thinking and finally get the success that we want, and to be able to keep it off. Like, I'm always doing thought work. I'm always like, I have my own life coach. Like, I'm always building my skills, because I'm learning how to think about my thinking. And my most important relationship is with myself. So I'm investing time and effort in myself. It's amazing. It's like, it's so powerful. All right. So the next one, so the remedy. So the first remedy is to realize that we can't hate ourselves thin, and that we need to learn to love ourselves. And so I love this idea that I could gain 20 pounds and it wouldn't mean anything about me. Let's say I had to go on prednisone or something, and I had to, or I did that, and I was 20 pounds heavier. Still there. My value hasn't changed. I just might have to get some different pants. Right? So interesting. The next one, so that's the first remedy, is we have to love ourselves thin. And, it's really interesting, because my whole program is based on that. The second one is I want to be happy. If there is negative in my life, I must be doing something wrong. Okay. So this next strategy, this is number 2, is there is this concept called the 50-50. Now, in nature, we have the opposites, right? When it's dark, the only way we know if it's dark outside is if we have light. And one of the laws is for every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. So in order to feel joy, we must know what pain feels like, because we have to have the contrast. So when we have a thought like, I want to be happy, is there any, like, if there's negative in my life, I must be doing something wrong. So even thinking about, I'm just going to bring up my children. So when you say to them, do the dishes, put the dishes away, pick up your room, and you think, oh my gosh, my kids are terrible. I'm the worst parent ever. Because if they were, good human beings, they would listen to me all the time and everything would be wonderful. But is that even realistic? Of course not. Like, so we have, so the 50-50 rule, but because we need to have that, we need to have, I didn't think about harmony, but that's part of it. We need to be balanced, right? We have to have the negative to feel the positive. So I give this analogy a lot with my clients. And so let's say this is a beach ball, okay? And here's the pool. And you're like, the beach ball is your fear or your negative emotion. You're like, I don't want to feel it. I don't want to experience it. I don't want to deal with it. I want to just, put my head in the sand or whatever it is. And so because you don't want to see the beach ball, because it signifies like this negative emotion, you spend a lot of time submersing it under the water. You're like, I don't want to see it. I don't want to deal with it. I just want to be happy all the time, right? This is that part of seeking pleasure. Do whatever feels good. Avoiding pain. Pain says we're making a mistake. I want to avoid having to, tell the kids, clean up your room, put the dishes away, whatever that is. So now I'm like trying to put this beach ball under the water. Meanwhile, really what I should do is be like, oh, the 50% of my day is when I have to get after the kids and, say, okay, this is what we're doing now. We are doing the dishes, and then we are going to sweep the floor, and then we're going to wipe the table. And I've done that for, probably the last 12 years. And so I just think, oh, this is just the negative. This is the 50% negative in my life where I have to do some of the parenting that I don't really love. I just want to go snuggle and read a book with them. That's way more fun. But now I don't make a big deal of it. Before I was like, I used to make it mean such a big, I'm like, oh, I'm a terrible parent. What's wrong with me? I should be better. I should have a system. Like, if I was smarter, if I was a better parent, we wouldn't have these problems. No, this is just what it is. When you're a parent, I thought you just told them 3 times, but apparently you tell them 170 times. But I don't make a big deal of it. I'm like, oh, this is just the negative, and that's okay. So that 50-50. So in order to have a balanced life and have harmony within yourself, we need to realize that to have a healthy life, a healthy balance, we need to have 50% of our day is good, positive, and 50% is bad. But where the trouble happens and where the sabotage happens, so first of all, we don't realize that that's actually how we have a balanced life but when people have this negative and they keep pushing down the beach ball, they exert so much energy, they avoid and resist rather than accept. Then when they avoid and resist, all that energy has now turned this into 85% of their day is now this negativity because they're avoiding and resisting it, and it's making worse and worse. Okay, so now over here, you're not actually experiencing all the joy that you would want to experience because all your energy is being sucked into avoiding and resisting rather than accepting. All right, what thoughts do you have about that? It's a really big concept. And so now you can, let's relate that to weight loss. Because if you're thinking that you're only acceptable if you're a certain weight, what's coming up for you? Or when you're thinking that life should always, you should just be able to eat whatever you want, right? What's coming up for you? If you're realizing, if you're not having this balance of like even a balanced meal, like, oh, I just get to have some protein and then I have some complex carbs like some broccoli and cauliflower and like all of that, you can see the result of that, right? Okay. So that leads me really well into the next one where it says, I don't want to be deprived. Food is comfort and pleasure. Okay. So when you think about that, I want you to, when you think about, like, so first of all, put in the chat, what are some of the comfort foods that you go to for sure? I want to hear them. And so as you're chatting, as you're putting it in the chat, one of my clients just talked about rice-a-roni. And when her kids were younger, she'd make rice-a-roni to stretch the dollar. And she said, my kids still will eat rice-a-roni. And it's not because rice-a-roni is delicious. It's because it's a memory of what the mom would make for them. Interesting, right? Okay, so chocolate. That's a comfort food. Salty chips. All right, so one of the things that I want you to think about is, what is the role of food? Why do we have food anyway? What's the purpose of food? Nourishment, right? It gives us nourishment. So nourishment is like, that has minerals, it has nutrients, it has all these particles that help build our bones, make our bones stronger, that make it builds our immunity system. Yeah, it's fuel for our body, absolutely. And so we do need fuel, but if we're carrying around, let's say even 20 extra pounds, and we'll say 3,000 calories per pound. So what's the math on that? 60,000? We have 60,000 extra calories that we're actually carrying around. Like, we have like power packs on our body, right? So we actually have a lot of fuel that we're carrying around. So when we think about the role of food, and then we think about this concept of comfort food, so this thought, I don't want to be deprived. Food is comfort and pleasure. You need to get really curious about what is actual pleasure. What gives us like long-lasting, like absolute pleasure? So as you're thinking about that, so this is interesting. So we have our family, right? So when you think about the motivational triad, so seeking pleasure, so do whatever feels good, conserving energy, exert the least amount of effort, avoid pain. Pain says we are making a mistake. Okay, so that is how we're wired. Now, so seeking pleasure, if we stop getting pleasure from food, we find other areas to have pleasure. We create new opportunities to stop. So we stop solving problems with Oreos. And then we actually start solving the real problem. So what's coming up for you when I say that? So how much of our time and effort is spent on thinking about food, preparing food, all of that? So one of the suggestions I I give to myself and to my clients is we want to make your food less exciting because then your life will become more exciting. So if our focus isn't necessarily all about food and what we're eating and all of that, which is kind of if we're like obsessed with it or really like focusing on that. So if we can keep that really simple, then guess what's going to happen? There's going to be a void, right? Because we're no longer seeking the pleasure from this. And now we can come over here and find true pleasure that's long lasting, pleasure that is going to create, it's almost like a slow drip of pleasure that's going to come with that rather than this like these quick bursts like with the potato chips or the chocolate. Okay, what's coming up? Yeah, focusing on your quilting. I gave one of my clients a challenge. She needs to go through her stash. She's like decluttering her house, and so she moved boxes, probably about 20 or 30 boxes, like when they built their house back in 2006, I think. She hasn't even opened those. And but then she has like her good fabric that's in another area. And I said to get a calendar and to print out all of the like calendar and like go through the projects and estimate how long each project is going to take. And then literally like calendar that out for how long that'll take you to finish all of those things. Because when we're in the habit of like consuming all the time, that's like a false pleasure. And then if we're not into like making things and creating things, we now have this really big chasm between like consuming rather than producing. Yeah. My husband says I'll be 120 before I get all done, right? So we need to put more balance in the way that we look at our life. So if we're spending a lot of time on social media and we're spending a lot of time consuming things and we're not actually producing things, like we're not creating, so it's really easy to buy fabric. It's really easy to buy patterns. It's really easy to get super excited. We get a dopamine hit because, right, seeking pleasure, it's like do whatever feels good. And then we get it in the mail and it's really wonderful. It's really exciting. But we're missing out on the extended pleasure of seeing something all the way through. We're missing out on building trust with ourselves of saying, I'm going to do something and I'm going to be able to go through the discomfort. So maybe trimming up is not your favorite. Maybe whatever that is, and you're like, oh, I don't really like that part. But if we can just feel any emotion and we know that it's 50-50, like every quilting project is going to be 50-50. Oh, so interesting. Yeah. So this is one of the traps that we get into, the consuming. All right. So does anyone have any questions? Please ask any questions. This is like, I didn't realize I only have 6 minutes left. I get a little passionate, as you can tell, about these things. So right now on this, so if anyone has any questions, please like ask them here in the chat. But I do want to talk a little bit about my Love Yourself Thin program. So my Love Yourself program is a 12-week group program, and there are 3 main parts to it. The one is weight loss science is simple. Emotions are the key to the universe. And 3, we're going to create a future you whom you love being. We are going to go to this person right here. So you can be 220 pounds and love yourself. And you can be 220 pounds and start working towards becoming that future version of yourself that you want to be. So currently, I have a group going. This is week 2, but I still have openings. So we have every Monday, we have a lesson, but where you're live and you're interacting with me. And then every Wednesday, you get to be either get coached or watch people getting coached, which is like fascinating. And then you have this massive support of a Facebook group. And you also have me that comes in and out and answers questions and helps you through. And then we have, I actually take all of these recordings of all my free trainings, and you have a playlist that you find. So you have, it's almost like the Netflix of me and of all these amazing resources. And then you get, so once you go through my program, oh, and then you have beautifully curated worksheets and information. It's wonderful. And then after you finish that program, then you get to have monthly coaching calls with me and everyone else who graduated. So it's actually a value of $12,000, and I'm selling it now for $2,000. So if you're interested in joining the group, then just contact me, and I will just, we'll work that through. I also am having one-on-one slots. I have 2 that will open up in November, and I think I might have 1 that's opening up in December. So if you wanted to work with me one-on-one, then we would just meet and we would figure out the timeline of how long we'd work together. And that's another way that I can help you, support you in this process. So any questions? As you're thinking, I do want to just review again. So 3 remedies to stop self-sabotage. The first of all, we have to understand this. This is the basic, this is how we're wired. So we are literally rewiring the way that we think and the way that we're programmed. And the way that we do that is we're willing to feel any emotion. And like, I love how Brene Brown says it, vulnerability is the birthplace for change. And that's the work. Like, I feel like I have been reborn. Like, I feel like I have so much courage to do the things that I want because I know the power of this work. Okay. So what are self-sabotaging patterns of weight loss? So if I'm happy, then if I reach my goal, then I'll be happy. You can't do that. You have to love yourself now, no matter how much you weigh. That's it. I teach you to love yourself now. And I, like, even today, my client, she's lost 30 pounds now. She's like, I feel so much more comfortable with losing weight because she knows that she's just learning to love herself throughout the whole process. And this week she had like 2 major things happen. Like, her power went out, all the things were happening, and she had all these things, but she didn't turn to the food. And so, because she's realizing that she can just learn how to process these emotions. It's amazing. The second remedy is to understand that it's 50-50. In order to have a balanced and harmonious life, we have to be willing to have the negative and the positive. And then the third one is when we talk about I don't want to be deprived, food is comfort and pleasure, that we need to learn to have more like delayed gratification, like real pleasures versus the false pleasures. And then we'll have the kind of life that we want. Okay. So I love that you came. I would invite you to tell all your friends. So again, I am Dara Thomason. I am the life coach for weight loss for quilters. Okay. I spend a lot of time helping you understand how you're wired and teaching you how to live the life that you want on purpose. Thank you so much. And if you want to get a hold of me, Dara@darathomason.com, or you can DM me on Facebook.